Hey guys, how you doing? It's tax season at the office. I wasn't able to keep my routine by going to California filming famous graves, so I thought I'd share this video with you. It's a podcast I was a guest of with a small guy. We talk about my channel and we talk about behind the scenes stuff. So maybe you'll enjoy it. I'll see you on the next one.
Join us, friends.
Great Scott, Spa Guy. Do they know what we have in store for them?
They will if they tighten up.
And don't double dribble. To the Grey Ghost, Spa Guy?
Exactly, old chum. No time to waste. To the Grey Ghost. We have not a minute to spare. It's showtime, friends. And all right. It is the Spa Guy. And it is not Trey this time. Trey is on location actually filming something pretty awesome. So sadly, he couldn't be here today, but I'm going to bring my friend in, Famous Graves with Diamond Dave. So let's get Dave in here. Hey, Dave.
Hey, how you doing, small guy?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Doing really well. What's Trey working on? Something top secret?
It is top secret, but at some point we'll divulge it. We'll divulge it at some point, but I can't today.
Well, just hold up a sign.
Yeah, well, if I told you, I would have to kill you. And I don't want to have.
Oh, don't do that. I just turned 65 and I'm enjoying living.
Wow, 65 years old. Yeah. Man, that's old, Dave. I didn't realize you were that old.
Yeah, I'm still humping graveyards.
Yeah, that's still exactly right. So, friends, those that don't know, Dave and I have known each other a long, long time, and he has a channel called Famous Graves with Diamond Dave, where he basically stalks dead people. So tell us about that, Dave.
I got that graveyard disease. There's actually a scientific term for it. I wish I would have looked it up. It starts with a TH. It's there's folks that enjoy walking through cemeteries.
Yeah.
And it's not spooky stuff. It's just respect and a way to explore beautiful cemeteries, and also along the way pay our respects. To those no longer with us.
Yeah.
But I think you're stalking an individual too, small guy.
Well, I have been in a few graveyards. I've been accused of stalking dead people, but you know what? They're really easy to find. You know, that way they don't move around.
No, I disagree with you there. Because to find 10 grave locations, it takes about 6 hours.
Yeah. It takes time, but still, you know the vicinity they're in, they're not moving around.
True. See that sign right here?
Yeah.
Every headstone is about this size.
Yeah.
So if you're in a 300-acre cemetery or memorial park, it's quite a challenge to find them.
Yeah. Now, luckily for some of you may not know that there is a website, an app that you can put on your phone called Find a Grave. I'm a member of Find a Grave. And so when I go to memorials, I'll take pictures, additional pictures. If there's no photos, I'll add photos. And I try to do my photos in such a way that you can use the photo as a way to figure out where it's at. Like if there's distinctive things in the background, trees, other things. And it also helps me, and I'm sure it's helped you when you're looking for a gravestone in a graveyard. You can look in the background a lot of times and go, okay, so that building is there. So I know it's on this side of that building. And I see this odd marker next to it. And so I'm looking for that marker on that side of the building, that kind of stuff. And it does take some time.
Oh, that's pure gold. If people would do that, it would cut our hunting time in half.
Yeah. And I try to make those upgrades. Whenever I go, I take pictures and add them to the Find a Grave things for that very purpose. So it helps people. Plus, when I make a video, and I know you do too, when I make a video in a graveyard, I'll always go, okay, the way you find this is you come in this entrance and you do this, you make this turn and you look for this, and it's right here. To say, yeah, it's important.
Pure gold. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. Some of the hardest stuff to do was Vester's grave. Uncle Vester and Aunt Cletus in Forest Hills is very hard to find. And it's, I mean, you know, the section it's in, but every time I go out there to show somebody, I have to find it again. It's out there just in the middle of this cluster of all these other graves. They're all flat. And there's really no good marker to say, if you stand here and look at this here, it's this thing where there's a tree over there. And if you count from that tree up 5 and you go over 13, that's where they're, that kind of thing. Are you doing that in your videos?
Yes, as much as I can. But I do this as a hobby. So I'll be at the same cemetery many times, and security is beginning to recognize me. So I use what I call a silver bullet. That is, I'll go to the front office and ask where a location is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my silver bullet. I can do that 1 or 2 times. More than that, you kind of wear out your welcome.
Yeah.
What's interesting, Lee, is Small Guy. You might know I'm an insurance guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's Dave the insurance guy prior to being famous Graves of Diamond Dave. He's actually my insurance guy.
That's the sad thing about it.
We have our house and all of our vehicles
I've seen the way you drive.
insured with you, and that's a good point. And he still insures me, even though he's seen how I drive. Yeah.
But what's interesting, if sometimes I build a relationship with the front office girls, and I've insured them.
Yeah.
In Texas, St. Louis, California, here in Nevada. So that's nice. I appreciate that too. But those pictures are gold. They really do help. But back in the old day, now I dug this out of the trash. The trash.
So that's a marker where they'll mark a section, and you go to that section and you start working your way back. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how we found them in the old days. Now, I found this in a dumpster. I didn't dig it up. This was in a dumpster. But what happens is these things get covered up with soil over years, or the numbers wear out.
Mm-hmm.
And these are placed about every 30 yards.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
But find a grave is primarily the way I find locations, primarily.
So
now, even better than that.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Even better than that, if I find sometimes when a family's visiting their loved one, they'll see me and they'll approach me, and if they're familiar with the cemetery, they'll walk me around.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I really appreciate that. They don't like to go on camera, but they'll point out different famous graves. And probably 10% of my videos, there's somebody in the back off camera while I'm filming.
Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask, where is the main graveyards that have given you an issue? I'm going to put this template back up. What is the main graveyards that give you an issue? I'll tell a couple of stories.
You mean where they don't, where I wasn't felt real
where
well?
They tell you to leave. Yeah.
Kind of like when I'm visiting you in Nashville.
Yeah.
You tell me to leave after a while.
Yeah. I say, hey, you can be anywhere, just don't be in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands down, downtown L.A., Westwood. The small one.
That's where Maryland is and all them, right?
Exactly.
And see, I've had a problem. That was the one that I was going to mention. I've had a problem at that same one.
Yeah, they'll walk right. I don't want to badmouth them because I appreciate the times I have been there, and I'd like to go back again as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll flat out walk out the front door and say, put the camera in the trunk or leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, they have all these famous people there that they really believe that people are not going to come. I filmed that whole thing, and I have several videos with that. But now you're doing a thing, and I even complimented you on it recently, where I like the pace of what you're doing now. Where you're going to a place and going, okay, this is how you find this person. This is their history, and then you go to the next one, and it's a hustled up pace. And I like the pacing of what you're doing now. No dead space. No pun intended.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that makes a difference. And I like videos that get to the point, and so yours get right to the point.
I wish you would.
Yeah. Another place that I had problems, the only other place I've ever had problems, let's get back to that for a moment, is in Memphis. I went to the graveyard of the military. There's like a military graveyard off of what's the name of that road? Is it Summer? It may be off of Summer. And I've never, other than the place that you were talking about, Westwood, I've never had anybody approach me at a graveyard and tell me I couldn't film, ever. And I was at this graveyard and I was out there, and it's actually a story that I've never put out. It was someone that was in Elvis's circle that was married to a man that was in the Navy. It's a lady. And I've never finished the story because I've never gotten all the rest of the stuff, but she's buried in this graveyard. So I'm out there with my camera, and this guy comes up and says, "Hey, you can't, do you have permission to be here filming?" And I went, "Man, I filmed in graveyards literally all over the world. I filmed in graveyards in Europe. Nobody's ever said, do you have permission to film?" And he said, "Well, this is a military graveyard and you cannot be in here filming without permission." And I said, "Okay, well, who do I get permission from?" He said, "Well, it takes a week." And I go, "I don't have a week. I don't live here in Memphis. I'm here to get this." And I was literally standing at the grave filming it when this guy came up. And what it all boiled down to was there's so many people going to these military graveyards and making negative videos about military and all these types of videos. So they just didn't want people in there they don't know what you're filming. So they want you to ask for permission before you come film. And I completely understand that. They're going in there and finding servicemen that have given their life and making fun of them and their families and doing stuff like that, which is definitely a no-no. But the guy did pull me over to the side and go, "Look, I can't say that you can film without getting permission, but I will say that we don't work Saturday and Sunday." He really did do that. So I went back the next day and filmed it with no problem. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. We have that First Amendment here in America. However, cemeteries are privately owned.
Yeah.
But the question is each plot, that's probably public property. But anyway, I just cooperate because I want to go back later or another time. Now I just lost my thought. What were we saying?
Well, we were talking about going to a place where they tell you can't film or kind of giving you a hard time. And being nice and being able to go back.
So in my channel, Famous Graves with Diamond Dave, is, by the way, folks, I got the name Diamond Dave from the Spa Guy way back. Okay. Seems like you nickname everybody you know.
Yeah, I do. I give them some name.
So these folks in my particular channel, it's Famous Graves. So they spend their entire life putting their brand out, their name. And a dope like me comes along and does a video to enlighten what they've done. And several videos on my channel are those who we forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bringing them back to life, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy doing that. And most of the comments on my channel are those folks who appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So I like doing that too. We all know Clark Gable.
Yeah.
And some guy named is it Elvis?
Yeah.
Some guy named Elvis. You know him?
Yeah.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think Elvis is going to mind that we're there filming.
That's right.
Video on his grave. Yeah. So I always find that interesting. But
you don't do only super famous people. You're kind of covering the gambit of people that were behind the scenes in movies, and I really appreciate that, because those people had input into things that have become a staple in the world, if you will, in movies and TV shows and that kind of stuff. So you're kind of highlighting everybody on every level.
Yes.
I did a video whenever I go to a town, especially if I'm spending any time in that town, we go to famous graves or find a grave. And on Find a Grave, you can pull up a graveyard in a town, and you can actually ask it, are there any famous people in this graveyard?
Yes.
So one of my favorites that I did was the guy that invented dumpsters. And,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I just happened to be close to that town, and I went. And do you know what the guy's name is?
Humpty Dumpty?
No, his name is Dempster.
Get out of town.
The original dumpsters were called Dempster dumpsters.
Oh, okay.
And so his last name is Dempster, and he grew up or lived in the town that my daughter lives in now. They're getting ready to make a move, but it's the town that she lived in. And in that particular town, there's a house there, a mansion, that the Dempster dumpster guy lived in. And the Dempster dumpsters were actually at Pearl Harbor. So the original photographs of Pearl Harbor, you could see Dempster dumpsters from Knoxville, Tennessee at Pearl Harbor when that happened in 1941. That was one of the first things that he did, was sold the idea of dumpsters to the military.
Well, when I was in St. Louis, I did a video on those who invented things we use today, but it doesn't do very well. I think our viewers, the YouTube viewers, want to see famous people.
Oh, of course they do.
Yeah, so it just didn't do that well.
Yeah.
But to me, it was fascinating to find a guy that discovered ammonia.
Yeah.
And invented Listerine.
Yeah.
But
it does not garner many views. I agree. My
no.
thing didn't garner many views. But I don't
also,
that.
Earlier we're talking about where we were kicked out of.
Yeah.
I was asked to leave at the Great Mausoleum, Glendale, California, Forest Lawn.
Yeah, now that's where Michael Jackson is.
Yeah, and Clark Gable.
Yeah, so when you walk into that main one, I mean, they watch that thing like a hawk. The one where Michael Jackson's at is locked up.
Right.
And we tried to trick them and act like we had someone inside there, and they didn't buy it.
No. So, but I still got a full video out of that. That's one of my favorite videos.
Yeah,
is,
I filmed there.
Another thing I like, Spa Guy, is when viewers call me at the office or email me or private message me on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things, is hearing from the viewers.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. And they'll make suggestions, and I'll think, oh, yeah, okay, I'll find that person.
Yeah.
So I try to incorporate those in the videos as well. Strangely, I know I'm not as famous as the Spa Guy.
Oh, Lord.
But interestingly, I've been approached two times to sign an autograph.
That's awesome.
Well, it wasn't anything big. It's folks who enjoy cemeteries.
Yeah.
And in both cases, they had a map looking around at the beauty of the cemetery and recognized me and had me sign the map. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it feels good when someone approaches you and says that they like what you do. It does feel good. Yeah.
And compliment.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you'll get the trolls.
Yeah. Well, haters are gonna hate.
Yeah, say, hey, you sound like white trash hillbilly.
Yeah.
And stuff, which I am. Well,
sadly, Dave, those people, their life is miserable, and they get misery loves company, so they won't try to make you miserable too. Yeah. And so, you know what I do? Block.
Yeah.
Bye.
Then when I'm out filming,
therapeutic, by the way, to block.
I'll notice several times that, especially on the weekends, not so much during the week, several times families, 8 or 9 family members will go out to their loved one, lay down in a blanket and have a picnic.
And just sit there. Yeah. That's something that I think the first time I saw that was in Las Vegas. I was at a cemetery and there was just people sitting out there in lawn chairs. around
And
the loved one. Yeah.
it seems like in every case, I got to get up there, lift that blanket up, and film.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't. I wait till they leave. But it seems like they're there all day.
Yeah.
So a lot of that incense burning. I never known the significance of that. I don't know. Is that Bible?
I mean, they talk about there's incense in the Bible, but I've always associated incense with dirty hippies. That was kind of a thing from the 70s for me. That was a thing that I didn't care for, because it just seemed like that it was always hippies that were and no offense to hippies if you're listening or watching and you consider yourself a hippie. It was just a negative connotation for me as a person growing up in the 70s for hippies, or late 60s, early 70s. Yeah.
Another
You were a
thing
hippie back then.
is people will speed through a cemetery.
Yeah.
Not you, Small Guy.
And then end up in the cemetery, ironically. Yeah.
And then they double park. They'll park on the street where you can't get by.
Yeah.
So you got to back up, go way back, and I don't understand that. Maybe they think that there's no traffic there.
Yeah.
So get a lot of that. And sometimes as I'm filming, I'll get texts, "Hey, where you at?" And I'll say I'm Forest Lawn, and they'll say, "Be sure to do so and so." Oh yeah, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite grave?
Other than George Jones?
I knew that the possum was going to be one of them, and I filmed in that graveyard. That's here in
that's beautiful. 10-foot headstone.
It's giant. And my uncle, my grandma's brother, actually is buried 20 feet from there on the other side. Not on,
across the block wall.
On the other side,
But how I caught this disease was when we'd go on vacation. If we had some free time, I'd walk through a cemetery. And one time I was down in Louisville, and I found Colonel Sanders' grave. And I guess that's how I got started on this. And I'll walk an average of 3 miles per video, up hills.
So it's good exercise on top of everything else.
Oh yeah, good fresh air, clean fun. Some people have a hobby of playing golf or bowling or shooting, hunting, whatever. My thing is I really enjoy doing this channel. It's a lot of fun for me, and I look forward to doing it. Once a month, I'll go to Southern California, and I'll get enough for 3 to 5 videos.
You went yesterday, right?
I just got back from Riverside yesterday. In fact, the Small Guy called me.
What did you record in Riverside? Who'd you film?
You'll just find out as we go along, because I'll release them.
Tell us one.
But one?
Yeah, that you filmed.
Okay, I'll tell you 2. Got Rollo. Rollo, do you know who he is?
Stafford's son?
Yes, got Rollo. And I got the captain on Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember him?
Yeah.
The African-American film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got him there.
That's cool.
Yeah, and probably a dozen others. 12 to 15 others. Yeah.
Rollo was Lamont's friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was always up to something.
Always up to something. And Aunt Esther would go tell his mama.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So once a month, so I'm getting into a rhythm. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to go on the weekends, 1 weekend a month to do that. And I've made friendships as well doing that.
Yeah.
Too.
But now you're also an expert in the JFK assassination. So you've been doing those kinds of things for a long time. That's not on your Famous Graves channel. Is it still on your other channel?
It's on my other channel, which it's True Crimes with Diamond Dave.
Okay.
But that channel takes a beating because of my belief of the assassination, which is not popular. So, although I appreciate the views,
but you've studied it, so you feel like you've
I feel like
an educated guess, if you will.
So
but you actually knew a lot of the folks. The guy that was standing next to Oswald with the cowboy hat and the Stetson suit or whatever that suit was, you knew that guy. You insured
yeah,
that guy.
I insured him, Jim Lavelle. He
Okay.
died at age 99, and several others involved in that.
You know
Not
Ruth Payne?
but Ruth Payne associated with that, several others.
But you've been to Ruth Payne's house with Ruth Payne, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
so those of y'all that don't know who that is, Ruth Payne is the lady that Oswald and his wife were living with, and the child, they were living in that house.
Yes.
In Ruth Payne's house. And Dave has been in that house with Ruth Payne, which is pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I have a trip planned to go to Dallas and film those associated with the assassination.
Mm-hmm. And you've already filmed a bunch of them, but not for this channel. So you're going to go back and do it. Right.
Correct. And I also have an interview set up with two people. One of them guarded Oswald's body before they buried him.
Wow.
He guarded his body at Parkland Hospital. He's in his 90s now. So I have that set up as well. Getting back to the famous graves, I recently talked to a gentleman who's retired from Westwood downtown there. And he was there for many, many years. And on the phone, he told me that they would go out of their way to bring business in of famous people like Truman Capote and others. And
so when they died, they would contact them to try to get them to be buried there?
Yeah. In a tasteful manner.
Yeah.
And today, those plots are going for about $250,000.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Limited space, and you're surrounded by famous people.
Yeah, and I was going to say,
Dean Martin.
For those who haven't seen this, it's surrounded by skyscrapers.
Now
it's
it is
in the middle of skyscrapers in the back. And other people that are there would be Marilyn Monroe is there.
Carol O'Connor.
Now, Marilyn's funeral was in that little chapel that's there. And there's photos of them bringing the casket out and Joe DiMaggio being there, all that stuff. Another one that I thought of, Don Knotts is there.
Tim Conway
is there. Rodney Dangerfield is there.
Yes.
When I was there was a donut sitting on the thing. Is there still a donut there when you went last time?
Didn't see it.
Okay. They had a box with a donut, a single donut, chocolate donut, there for I don't know what semblance that has with him. Florence Henderson is there.
Yes.
From the Brady Bunch. I mean, there's a list. Another one that has an unmarked grave is who?
The tough guy. I know who you mean.
It's somebody that died here in my town, but he's buried there.
I can't think of his name. I know. You just can't.
It's a singer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, him, and also an actor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This guy's good. Come on. Pretty Woman guy.
Roy Orbison.
Orbison. Yeah.
He is buried he died in my town, but he's buried out there in California in an unmarked grave.
Yeah, true. That's very true.
And I filmed that. I know where the grave was. There's a thing there that marks the grave, so I have it.
It's usually flowers.
Yeah.
Check my channel out, folks. I did a video on Marilyn Monroe's funeral. I had pictures before and after, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I rep Small Guy off for that idea. I love doing that too. Seems like it adds something to the video. And
it does. If you have photos, it definitely adds.
Yeah.
Last time Trey and I were in LA, which was just a few months ago, we filmed Marilyn's house. We went in that little cul-de-sac and I flew the Glory over to the house and flew it up around the house and down around the swimming pool and all that kind of stuff, because they're talking about tearing the house down. And what we didn't realize is when we were in the cul-de-sac, it's not really a cul-de-sac, but it's a circle. And when you're there, you see there's a fence all the way around the whole circle. Well, to the left, there's like an opening for a vehicle to go through. And then there's another opening for a vehicle to go through. And then there's a door. And then there's another door and another opening for a vehicle, another opening for a vehicle. Well, this guy pulls up in a G-Wagon real low rumble, V8, and the door opens and he pulls in. Well, I didn't realize that he lives in Marilyn's house. I
Oh,
thought that there was more than one house. There's only 2 houses in the cul-de-sac. He was pulling in the garage of that house. He literally pulled in and pulled out while Trey and I were standing there, and he drove off before I realized it. When I flew the drone, I realized it. I would have stopped and at least asked him, hey, if this house is going to be torn down, would you let me go in and film it before it gets torn down? But I didn't get a chance to ask him. But he pulled up in a G-Wagon. I'm sure he was like, well, there's some more clowns. What are they doing here?
yeah. That's a popular place. Lots of YouTube videos there.
Yeah.
I want to get to Nashville, and you're just surrounded with them, small guy.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I saw one recently over there where Eddie Rabbit is buried. There's a Vern Gosden's in that same cemetery, and I didn't realize it, but I just saw his gravestone 2 days ago. And I wasn't there, but I saw somebody was there, and I saw the gravestone, and it's in, I think, Olivet, which is either Eddie Rabbit's in Olivet or he's in the one beside Olivet. There's
Billy Walker
up high on a hill. Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a cemetery and a memorial park?
And a graveyard, I absolutely do. Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
Would you like to know the difference?
Yes.
Graveyard features a church. A cemetery has no church.
That could be, but
that is what it is. If it's a graveyard, it always has a church there. If it's a cemetery, there's no church. It's just
okay. But what I didn't say graveyard. Difference.
I heard you say memorial park, but let's differentiate between cemetery and graveyard.
Okay,
That's the difference between those two. So let's look at cemetery and memorial park.
A funeral director that I recently insured here in Las Vegas was he's retired now. I'll tell you. After I say this, I'll tell you another interesting fact. A cemetery has flat or has upright stones.
Okay.
Memorial Park, they're flat.
Okay.
Okay. I'll throw this in for free. If it's an upright headstone, it cuts my time in half.
Right. They're easier
6
to find.
hours
to
3 hours.
Yeah.
You can find them.
Well,
and
you
many times
the stone and that kind of stuff helps.
as you're driving down the road, you can look left. Right there they are. They're above ground. And another fact, the average water bill for a cemetery that's not on a well, that's on city water, is $50,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how in the world they would afford something like that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So how about a cemetery that has flats and uprights? I've seen them.
Well, especially the older, mature memorial park cemeteries. They'll start out with headstones above ground, way back, and as we go along in time, it seems like they're getting flat.
Yeah. So
another challenge. You mentioned find a grave earlier.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, folks will go up and take pictures of their loved ones or a famous person. And as they're walking away, getting in their car, they'll hit the button for GPS.
Yeah.
Now that throws me and you way off because we're looking like idiots walking over here by the curb because that's where the guy or
he did the pin drop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that throws us way off, and that it takes about an hour to figure that out.
Yeah. That's something. Now let me ask you this: have you ever filmed a grave that the marker was not factual?
Yes.
Okay, give me an example, and I'll give you an example.
Well, they'll talk about a famous grave of this guy, and they're really at a different location.
Right.
They got their famous names mixed up.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would be an example?
I don't remember.
I filmed one I was in Mississippi in a graveyard out in a cow pasture. I don't know if I put this video out yet. I don't think I've edited it. And if you go out there to this grave, it is, it has the guy's name on it, but he died long before that, unless you believe that he didn't actually die. Who was the guy that assassinated Abraham Lincoln?
John Wilkes Booth.
Okay, so it's John Wilkes Booth.
Oh,
So I was in a graveyard that says John Wilkes Booth, and now there's some stories that I've heard. Now, what's interesting is in this particular town, in this graveyard, there's other people last name Booth. Like the local doctor was last name Booth. His daughter, which was buried there, her last name was Booth. So there's Booth people there. So some people would say that the reason that I found that grave there was that he didn't actually die, wasn't put to death, and buried in wherever that would be. Where would it be? Virginia, or I don't remember where they actually put him to death at. Where's the theater at?
D.C.
It's in D.C., right? Ford Theater. So he would be buried around D.C., you would think. And so that's one thing, that he didn't actually die. Later, he died with family. He lived undercover, whatever, and then he's buried here, and they put his real name on it. Another example would be, and this particular gravestone, by the way, was broken. So it would normally be like that at the top. This one was sheared off at the top. It was broken off at an angle, but it still said John Wilkes Booth on it. So some say that there's a secret society. What did they call them, Dave? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's called the Knights of, it's something to do with knights.
Oh, yeah.
And supposedly they would do these underground things where they would have these spies that went around and did all these different things. So what they would do was, in graveyards, they would put a gravestone that had an odd name on it, and that was a marker for them to know that that was a place that they could get money. If they needed money, they would actually put money inside. They would make the gravestone and put money inside of it. So you would break it off. There'd be a hollow spot, and they would pull cash out of it. And so the reason that this one is broken could be that they sheared the top off of it to get the cash out of it. And they put John Wilkes Booth on it as a way. You walk in there and you know John Wilkes Booth died in D.C., so he's here, that kind of thing. Have you had anything like that you've ever run into?
Not yet.
I have filmed that. It's literally out in a cow pasture in a little town. I think Guntown, if I remember, Guntown, Mississippi, is the town. And I went to the police department to find because it's not on any maps. It's literally out in the middle of a cow pasture. I went to the local police department and talked to the guy, and he actually caught me at someone's house. There's this old house in the middle of town that I thought was interesting. So I got out and filmed the house. It was abandoned. And he pulled up and asked me what I was doing, and I talked to him. And then I asked him about where this graveyard was that John Wilkes Booth was buried. And he told me where it was. And I had to go out in the middle of a cow pasture. Luckily, I was driving the Jeep. I had 4-wheel drive because I couldn't have got out there. I had to pull up, open a gate to a cow pasture, pull in, close the gate, and then drive way out in the middle of a cow pasture to find it. Yeah.
Well, you and I both have had unpleasant experiences with folks who want to butt in with what we're doing. We have the First Amendment right to do it, but anyway, they want to. Anyway, I'll move on. Some cemeteries are very well taken care of, and some are really rough.
Yeah.
Where Clyde Barrow's buried, that's really rough. The weeds are overgrown, and you got to dig out the headstones. So I have a great appreciation for the ones that are taken care of. Like Forest Lawn does a nice job.
So is Bonnie and Clyde not together?
No, they're separate. She's about 15 minutes away.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, Forest Hills, where Elvis was, the mausoleum?
Yes.
They've just restored that mausoleum.
Oh.
Did you know that? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I pulled up there.
Is there somebody in Elvis's prior location?
No, it is empty. I pulled up there.
Does Graceland own it?
No. No, last January, not this past January, January 2023. Trey and I were doing tours, and I pulled up in the tour bus, and I saw them out there working on it. They were outside painting and spraying and doing different stuff. And the supervisor over that job walked up to me. I rolled the window down. He walked up to the bus and said, "Hey, I recognize you. You're the guy in the video. I've got something for you. Plus, do you want to see?"
Nice.
I said,
Nice.
absolutely. So he let me go in. They had the gate open, and they had pulled the when you're standing there looking at the door, you've been there before. There's 4 on one side, 4 on the other side. Gladys was bottom right. Elvis was the second one up on the right. They had pulled Elvis's out and resealed it, and the concrete that they used to originally seal it was still in there, and he gave it to me. I have it.
Oh, nice.
All that. So
Nice,
he gave me
nice.
that, but he let me go in and film in there. And he also told me that they had watched the video, so they knew that was Elvis's crypt, and
Very
they knew
nice.
that, it was important.
Yeah.
Now it's completely locked up, both sides, because they don't want anybody in it. But they spent the money to restore it, so it's back like it should be.
The estate doesn't own that spot?
No. What happened there was when Elvis died. This is in Bob Kendall's book. Bob Kendall was the funeral director, and this is in Bob's book. And what Bob said happened was Vernon, of course, was distraught. He just told Bob, "Just find me somewhere appropriate for Elvis that we could keep him safe." So Bob went over there and looked. It was down the street from Graceland, which was, close proximity. He went in. It had its own gate that they could shut. So they did the paperwork, got the price, did all the stuff. Elvis was placed in there. Gladys was placed in there. But then about 2 months later, a little over 2 months later, Elvis and Gladys were moved to Graceland, as everybody
So
knows.
Gladys was reinterred.
She was 3 times. So she was moved from the burial place to where Elvis is in the mausoleum, and then moved from there to Graceland. So she was actually interred 3 times.
She was in the ground originally.
Originally, that's right. In a copper
When Elvis died, they moved her at that time?
That's right. Just
Okay.
a couple of days later. So what happened is they moved Elvis and her so fast that the money never changed hands. So they never actually paid for Elvis being there in that spot. So it was actually owned by the graveyard, by the people that own the mausoleum, still own it today. And they tried to auction it off, and people acted so ugly about it that they held off for a period of time.
Thank you very much.
And that means that we have about 3 minutes left. But they ended up having people act so ugly about them trying to sell that particular spot that they took it back off the market. Now, it's probably been sold privately by now, I would think. But I don't know that, especially if it's locked up now. Used to, you could just freely walk up in there and go in. But now they've got it literally locked on both sides.
When I was down there paying my respects to the greatest country music in the history of the world, George Jones.
Yeah, Possum.
Possum.
Mhm.
Just to the left of him is empty. So I went to the front office, asked how much they want for it. She said $6,000. Okay. So then I go to Dallas, where Mickey Mantle is interred, and which is a mausoleum.
Mm-hmm.
To the left of him is empty. So I went to the front office. How much you want for that spot? $50,000.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you get the spot next to the possum?
Not yet.
Well, what are you waiting for? Now that you've told it, somebody's going to jump on that.
Yeah, boy. But I don't like to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get a lot of emails asking if I've ever been spooked. Many mausoleums, I'm in there by myself.
Yeah.
I really never have. You hear creaks and cracks and
Yeah.
wind noises. You can if you really concentrate, you can work into something. But I really never have. I never have.
Well,
But
the mausoleums always smell weird. That's
Yeah,
a little bit of a thing. Yeah.
and they play music in mausoleums
Yeah.
and columbariums,
Yeah.
but no other places.
Yeah. The most famous mausoleum that I've ever been to, which was very, very hard to get to, was in Staten Island, and that was Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt Mausoleum.
Yeah.
He had his own mausoleum built, and it actually seats 150 people. It has its own thing, and it's in the back of the
Wow.
Moravian cemetery. It's in the very back. It has its own gate. And I went there. Lori and I was during the winter. There was snow on the ground, about 10 inches of snow. I jumped the fence and ran if you're standing there at the gate, you could see it. It's up above you, but it's real high up. So the road goes like that and goes all the way uphill. And I ran up there in church shoes.
Well,
And
you got a habit jumping fences.
you talk about out of shape. When I got up there on the video, I almost needed a spot in there, but it was beautiful. It was snow covered when I got up there. Couldn't get inside the mausoleum because they had an issue where the doors were so big that there was a girl there, and they were trying to open the doors, and the door fell on her and killed her.
Ooh,
So they've got the thing blocked off now.
wow, that's
But
quite
when
a
it was
liability.
built, it was like $3.5 million, and it was designed and built by the same guys that built the Biltmore House, and they built the grounds and all that, and also Central Park in New York. The same guys that designed their mansion in New York on Fifth Avenue and the Biltmore House and Central Park, it's the same people that designed this thing. So that was probably the wildest one that I ever went to.
You didn't ask me which grave I'd like to film that I haven't yet.
Okay, so that's a good question.
That's in a great mausoleum. Phil and William Wrigley's Chewing Gum.
Okay.
And I was really close. I was working up my ambition to climb that fence. And right when security told me I've worn my welcome out.
So they showed up and told you?
Yeah. So, okay, since we're talking, I tipped, I won't say any names, but I bribed somebody to get into where Jim Davis is of Dallas.
Yeah.
You remember him?
Yeah.
Dallas movie, the television series Dallas.
Yeah.
So $20 got me in through that door. So
hey, that's sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, Dave.
yeah. So
I haven't paid for many times that I've been in somewhere, but there's been times.
Same thing for Joseph Hanna of Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
Same thing there. So I was able to do a video.
That's cool.
I'm not saying names. I'm not mentioning locations.
Yeah.
But that was my lunch money.
I hear you. Well, tell
That's
them
my gas money home.
Tell them again how to find your channels.
Famous Graves with Diamond Dave on YouTube. It's going really well. I'm very happy at it.
It's really growing.
Doing them, and it seems like it's starting to do well. And if you would come and subscribe, it just mean the world to me. Don't forget to hit the bell icon. When you do that, that tells you that I've released another video, which I do on Sundays, try to, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free.
And you've got the other channel.
Yeah, True Crime with Diamond Dave.
Yeah. And I'll put links to both channels down in the description of this video. And if you're listening on audio, I will put a description in the description area on just the podcast. So some people are listening, some people are looking.
Trying to get this.
There you go. Famous Graves with Diamond Dave.
So say something nice. I'll give you a sweatshirt. The first three.
The first
I gave
three.
3 T-shirts away last podcast we did.
That's good. Well,
but, you got to pay the shipping and handling. no,
yeah.
I'm teasing.
The handling is going to be, I mean, your time is worth a lot.
No, everything's free. Everything's free. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and we will see you next time, my friend.